So let's start. It's across the papers. The government is making lots of announcements, £100 million, NCA offers, cracking down on illegal working, cracking down on social media ads. This deal they're signing with the French to send people back, and Reform and the Conservatives say it won't work, it's just gimmicks, it'll make no difference.
50 a week. That's what it's going to be. 50 a week will leave. 25,000 have arrived already this year so far. An all-time record.
Do you think that might expand, though,
They're fiddling while Rome's
successful?
burning. They're fiddling while Rome's burning. The fact is, they haven't found a means to stop and deter young men who are economically viable young men, often in their 30s, from coming here. They found no reason to stop them. They haven't got anywhere to process them elsewhere or to deter them. They're still coming in droves, and that's the key.
I think he's saying that the Rwanda scheme wasn't a gimmick.
Well, it clearly was. It was a horrendous gimmick, and it was an expensive gimmick at that too. But I refuse to go down the path of viewing this as something inherently negative.
Really?
As in immigration
Really?
in the slightest bit. No, I don't. I think this presents an opportunity for us. And we should actually try and rethink this. Because immigration is inherently, number one, a net positive for us.
It's illegal.
And number two... no,
It's illegal.
No.
It's illegal. They're crossing illegally.
The law is just a set of words when people are desperate.
No, it's
but
the law.
Key thing is that... But the key
it's
thing
the law.
Yeah, but the law is just a set of words when people are desperate, I reiterate. But the key thing here is that for us, we have to find a way to make this work for us. Because the Britain that I live in, that all of us live in or so, we are all inherently very dependent on immigrants. This beautiful complex that we're doing this room in right now, if it was built within the confines of natural staffing levels within Britain on building sites, so 1 in 2 of the people who would have built this actual complex were immigrants. 1 in 3 of our doctors are immigrants. A good number of our teachers are immigrants. If you look around, if anybody who pops into A&E today right now or is in a desperate situation, they are going to walk into a hospital staffed by people who are either immigrants or of immigrant descent. That's a good thing.
But not people who came on small boats without a visa.
The people who came on the small boats on the visa are no better or less than any of us or so. The only difference between us and them is that we got lucky in life and we were happy to be either born here or migrated here.
And absolutely, you know, I think part of what people's reaction to the small boats is people don't want people dying.
Yeah, of course.
Out of desperation in the Channel. Nobody's anti those as individual human beings. But are you denying completely the tensions and the concerns that people feel about too much immigration and illegal immigration? Because, you know, we've seen huge demonstrations, haven't we, this weekend on Sunday outside the Britannia Hotel in London's Canary Wharf. We saw an attempt at a peaceful protest, they call it the Pink Protest, which lots of mums concerned for their youngsters about a lack of knowledge of who are being kept in these hotels, trying to protest peacefully, and then, unfortunately, it was swamped by a more negative protest, people in balaclavas and a concern over violence there. So that is happening, that is a tension, that is some fear. So does that get ignored completely?
I don't think it should be ignored, but I also don't think it should be...
So what should be done about it then? And what should be done about how we manage the numbers coming into our country, legally or otherwise?
I don't think it should have been inflamed in the first place, because it has been inflamed. And I feel that what we are seeing here is a situation in which there's a lot of different interests are happening outside of the hotels that we're seeing around the country. There's, of course, people who might have concerns about immigration. And, of course, there's also an ethno-nationalist wing to this, too. The far right has been out there, too.
Yeah,
in terms of, now, to answer your question very directly, how do we actually respond to this? How do we make sure that how do we actually stop the boats? How do we stop making people take these risky routes? So, of course, there's the creation of safe routes to the UK, number one. And number two, there's also the element in which we work tooth and nail to stop being part of the root cause of the problem. By that, I mean this. In the choice between bombs and bread, when it's time for us to go around the world or so, we far too often choose bombs. We're far too eager to get involved and actually be in war efforts or so, war efforts or bombing people or so, which creates the very refugees, the very desperate migrants that we see showing up on our shores here, seeking help, seeking refuge, seeking some sort of better life than what they currently have. And I think those things cannot be ignored too.
Of course that is right, Nels.
Please.
But it's not the case that every person in the world has a right to come and live in Britain.
That's correct, yeah. And every person in the world doesn't come here. Most refugees actually go to places very close to them.
And we have a visa system, and if you come with a visa...
Indeed.
But people who claim they're coming to do a university course and then claim asylum, or people who come on a boat without a visa and then don't have their asylum claim stood up by the process, their asylum claim is rejected, they should go home.
Yeah.
They should leave.
And they're here for years. And they're here for years.
Well, they shouldn't be here for years.
In the
system.
They're here for years, but there's been a
kicked out.
massive backlog.
Yeah, and they should be kicked out. They lose their... I'd stop the appeals. You lose, you're out.
Are you sure that you want to say that the deal with the French to send people back is a bad thing?
Say it again.
Are you sure you want to say that the deal with the French, which has been years in the...
It's better than nothing.
It is.
But it's 50 a day is not enough.
Do we know it's 50?
Yeah, that's what everybody's saying. It'd be 50 a day. If it's more, great. But look, 25,000 so far this year. This is a constant illegal flow. It's causing huge pressure in communities up and down the country. Good or I mean, Nels talks about the far right. Of course the far right get hold of these issues, but a lot of these people who are protesting are ordinary men and women who are seeing their communities completely changed, be out of all recognition, and they feel scared and anxious, and they don't want to be dubbed racist for saying it. And it's a big problem, and if the government has to get a grip with it, and they've shown no effort, no sign of it so far.
We don't want people housed in hotels, do we, Nels, at vast expense, which I imagine is pretty also miserable for them.
Yeah.
Just being in a room with a load of other people, just waiting for it. So how do you address that?
Well, again, so I think the policy here so what you use the term illegal at least 7 or 8 times.
Well, they are illegal.
So yeah, but
they're
again,
illegal.
But okay, they're illegal. Would you say they're? But if they're illegal,
they're crossing illegally.
Okay, we're inherently implying that these are criminals. Or something.
They are crossing illegally.
Criminals are not born; criminals are made. And I feel that what we are seeing in this situation here. And sorry, I want to answer your question as directly as possible. So about the hotels, yes. Those seem like places where no one wants to be. You don't want to be in a migrant hotel. So it might be a time for us to rethink the law here. These are, if we are, as they've actually said to us, that these are able-bodied or fighting-age young men or so, then what's a fighting-age young man is a working-age young man. There's somebody who can turn around.
You can't hold up a sign saying to every working-age young person, come to Britain.
But again,
without a visa, you can't do that.
Most migrants, or so most people, economic refugees or refugees of any form of fashion or so, don't actually come to Britain the slightest bit. They actually, if you look at, say, the Middle East, during the Syrian war, for example, or what's gone on in, say, Palestine, amongst other places, most people migrated to Jordan. Or to Turkey.
Yeah, we're talking about the 25,000 who've crossed here.
You're arguing both ways, that people don't want to come, but people do come. The people that are coming, and I know you're trying to give a balance, but people are coming, they're risking their lives on both. There's gangs making money out of it. There's people dying on the way here. That is a problem. And I wonder if people are going to hear what you're saying and think your answer to that problem is just to say, well, immigration isn't bad. Because immigration, as principally, of course, isn't bad. We're a country that's thrived because of the people that have come to live here, of course. However, this is a problem that needs solving, isn't it? So what is your idea of the solution?
My idea in terms of solution, again, I maintain twofold. Number one, stop being part of the problem. And stop being part of the problem, be part of the solution. By that, I mean the root cause of the problem. Far too often, we are a refugee-creating machine as far as the nation's concerned, as far as us as a nation is concerned. And also to be part... And reconsider what the solution looks like. When we have people here...
OK, so what in recent history, the last 10 years, have we done, you think, that's created the refugees? Because, for instance, our involvement... supporting the war in Ukraine. Has that created a problem? What are you saying is the problem that we've done? Let's say the last decade, not going back to...
I would say there's a clear difference between how we've accepted and responded to people, desperate people coming into the country from Ukraine versus, say, people who are coming in from places like, I don't know, Libya, for example, or so, the area surrounding that.
How did we create that problem?
I mean, that was pretty much the downfall of Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi was somebody who I never liked from when I was young for a range of different reasons, going back to my parental homeland in Nigeria or so. But one thing that he did do, pandering to pandering to basically trying to keep the Europeans on his side, he actually kept a strong line of immigration, a strong line of migration wall also between Europe and Libya. We then got rid of Gaddafi, bombed the country and created a massive refugee boom. The same thing we saw in Syria, same thing we... Please, Ed, please.
But how about Albania? Albania, I think, is the harder one for you. We had a huge flow of young migrants from Albania 2 years ago. The government stepped in, did a deal with the Albanian government, and it stopped. People weren't coming from Albania because they were seeking refuge. And nor can we say that British policy caused the Albanian crisis. And whether you control the flow of migrants from Albania or not is in the government's hands, and the government, I think, was right to stop it. How do you respond to that one? Because that is not something you can say is like a Libya or a Syria where somehow we should have done something.
I would say that Albania was atypical, as in it was not typical of what we're seeing in terms of migrant flows. Yes, Albania, there was a boom from there, and of course, it was clearly driven by economic opportunity, which, again, is not inherently a bad thing. All of us around this table, if we saw better economic opportunity somewhere else around the world, what would we do?
We would go and pursue it.
Exactly.
No one's saying that the urge isn't right.
Please.
It's just that you then have to manage that urge, don't you? Just like if we wanted to go somewhere and do something,
just look at these boats. The majority, again and again, are 30-something young men. Very few families, very few children, very few. They're coming here because we are a soft touch economically, and they know it.
Talking about solutions, I think it's in the Times and in the Mail today. Keir Starmer looks into Blair-style ID cards to fight illegal migration. Is the government going to decide to spend billions of pounds putting in place a mandatory ID card for every British citizen in order to control migration?
Well, look, Blair wanted to do this years and years and years ago. And, in fact, it was going to be government policy and the Tories blocked it. And I know he's pushing at the scenes even now for a digital ID. I think it's probably going to happen.
I think it was Gordon Brown who blocked
Gordon
it.
Brown.
As well as the Conservatives.
Yes, it was. Yes, right.
You think, I know, but the question is, should it happen? Does it solve any of the problems we're talking about? Does it stop people arriving illegally, absconding on their visas, working illegally for an unscrupulous employer?
Doesn't sound like it does to me.
Well, there will be people that think it might do because we have a huge problem of not knowing how many people are here. So people would look at this and think this is a way of knowing who is here and giving employers a chance to be able to look and go, OK, you're legal, you're not. But you don't think necessarily that will work.
We already do that. First of all, I think that, again, so this is classic. It's politics, but it's very, very new Labour-ish. Not new, like Labour-ish or so, insofar as, first of all, never let a crisis go to waste. And that's what's happening over here right now. They've seen the appropriate crisis and we're not letting it go to waste. So, therefore...
That's very cynical. It could be an attempt to find a solution.
I'm
so tell me why it won't work.
I'm standing on cynicism.
What Nels is saying is that it's not the first time Tony Blair and the Tony Blair Institute have pushed this policy.
Of course not.
But were they right?
We are not a papers, please society. That's not what Britain is in the slightest bit. We're not all this...
Maybe we should be. Maybe we should be. If you're here legally, working, paying your taxes, why would you worry about having an identity card?
I think most British people would be very happy to have them if it would work. The question you have to ask is, if you're going to spend billions of pounds and say to every pensioner in our country who's not currently got a driving licence or a passport, you must now apply for a ID card, whether it's digital or not. Unless you do that, it doesn't work. And even then, the people you're worried about, the illegal worker employed illegally who has come without a visa, I mean, of course they've not got an ID card. They are in our country.
But wouldn't that give people the opportunity to spot that quickly and efficiently?
I'm
only asking the question.
If the unscrupulous employer is willing to say, oh, by the way, I'm an unscrupulous employer who's employing people illegally under the minimum wage, but I'm going to ask to see your ID card, I bet they wouldn't check to see.
But maybe
we could put the unscrupulous employer...
I'd also have grave anxieties as to whether this lot, the government, any government in this country, has the wherewithal to develop a proper, effective IT, digital ITs. And don't you think?
Also,
really
operationalise. Somebody comes into A&E, and they've just been in a car crash, and they say, look, I need to see your ID card before we decide whether to treat you. They're not going to do that.
No.
It's not clear that it actually ends up biting on the thing that you worry about. So you spend billions to give all of us ID cards in order to actually achieve
Do what?
Also,
that's my
if
worry.
There was joined-up thinking within the government right now, the Online Safety Act, if they were thinking long-term, the Online Safety Act would have been the perfect opportunity to usher this through. But they knew deep down that the Online Safety Act didn't have the requisite crisis to push it through, essentially. So right now they're pushing us in the direction of, if you wish to go on, say, Reddit or certain other websites or even on Spotify or so, you have to prove that you're a grown-up and you send in your ID card or something else like that.
I think the Treasury... Look, isn't the Treasury just saying, you know, if we've got a spare £5 billion, I can think of better things to spend on?
And they haven't got a spare £5 billion.
Well, they're not anymore.
No, they certainly have not got a spare £5 billion quid.
Not entirely unrelated, because this is a crisis that may well lead to refugees, but a positive one, I think most people would think, for the poor souls affected. The UK is planning to evacuate injured children from Gaza. There have been 3 injured children, very drop in the ocean compared with the need so far done through a private campaign. But this is going to be up to 300 come to the UK for NHS treatment. Is that something, because I think we've all been horrified by the images, they're so distressing. Is that something that seems like the right thing to do?
I think people have got big hearts in this country and they'll think it is the right thing to do. Some of those little ones, it's just so terrible. And get them out is what the NHS does best. And maybe whether they ever get back, but...
well, that's the thing, isn't it? What have they got to go back to?
Exactly. Do they then stay here permanently? Does the mum come with them? I'm not sure, but I think that's what the NHS does very well. And it's 300 is small beer in context of what the NHS does every day.
So we're going to be debating later on. Should parents criticise other parents if they see them in the street doing something which they judge to be wrong with their children? I remember when we were actually both in the cabinet, coming back from France, we were in Calais, and our kids were playing in the playground and we had to get moving. And I said to our son, I said, come on, or else we're going to leave you behind. And this man next to me turned and says, well, he says, that'll be in the Mail on Sunday at the weekend. And I thought, I know, but I didn't mean it.
Was it?
It wasn't actually.
But you left your child behind. That would have been in the Mail on Sunday.
Many times it was.
Don't forget when David Cameron left his daughter in the pub at Chequers. It made the papers for weeks.
I remember. They all went back in separate cars, didn't they? And they found that one was left behind.
So we've got former Hollyoaks star Jeremy Edwards coming on, and this is his TikTok video where he calls out being called out.
Here's one for the parents out there. So I'm out with my kids, you can see one of them there. Hang on, Teddy. And my daughter cycles off in the other direction. And eventually I find her and I say, right, you're in big trouble, you are in big trouble. And this mother walks past and goes, that never works. Who the tells another parent what to do? I wasn't screaming at her, I wasn't swearing. I was just telling her, hang on, Teddy. I was just telling her, I mean, I'm so livid. Oh, just mind your own business.
Jeremy, as Ed said, is coming on later, but I'm desperate to ask what Teddy was trying to say to him. Was it the daughter's wandered off again?
I thought he was going to say, Teddy, if you don't shut up, I'm going to throw you in that river.
But on a broader picture now, you're a dad. We've all had moments when we try to... We have no chance to do it privately. We have to publicly address the situation with our children. Do you think... How would you feel if someone came up to you?
So it depends. So I'm wearing 2 hats here right now in response to your question there. It's not the most British of things for us to do, to go and stick your nose into somebody else's child rearing manners or so. But again, so my parents are Nigerian. I was born here, and I do look at how that side of my heritage does things. And so the old thinking is that it takes a village to raise a child, and it also takes a village to raise the bar to actually improve standards. So within that situation, also, if you're Nigerian origins, damn near everybody's criticising you as a parent and as a child, and it's consistent basis or so. So it's almost like if you do something wrong at school, you've got to deal with your mum and dad, then your uncles are going to drive over or so, then your aunts are going to come over too, and they all chastise you, and everybody celebrates you when you succeed too. So that's inherently a good thing. It creates for a better society, a better raised child, because they know that they are surrounded. So are you
saying, Nels, you've inherited from your parents that interventionist streak, and therefore in the wider village where you live, you're often calling out parents for poor parental activity?
I just couldn't see myself doing it. In my local area, so I'm all the parents, as we are in all areas, or so we're communities. So all of the parents are all quite close to each other. We all give each other tips about parenting. But OK, this is a good school. Might want to avoid that school or so, this and so, or don't, just different things here and there. That's how these things tend to work. And that's a beautiful thing about Britain. But in terms of actually the more brute side of it, as in, OK, you raise your voice a little bit too much there, or maybe you could be a bit more harsher there. So it's just not how... I couldn't see myself doing it at all.
Get back in your lane.
Andrew, would you steam in?
No. Definitely not. Definitely not. Definitely not. And my parents wouldn't.
I can imagine you walking down the road, though, and seeing a parent.
No.
And I don't think you'd say anything. You just stand there, you just got to go...
I might think it.
That would be enough.
Yes.
Mind you, I have
It might
to...
be the
Death
look
stare
on the
from
face.
Andrew Pierce.
Yes, exactly.
That would be enough. But also, your trouble has never been with children, it's been with naughty MPs, hasn't it? There's an article that you wrote yesterday where you're naming and shaming some of the worst offending politicians.
Well, just...
It's Edward Heath, David Cameron, John Gummer, Alistair Campbell, Peter Mandelson. You were calling all out who'd been rude to you.
Well, I mean, they're entitled to be rude to me, and I'm quite OK about it, but I just point out some of the rudest examples.
Tell us a couple of them using clean language, please, Andrew, because not everybody might have read your article. Name and shame here as well.
So Ted Heath was the former Prime Minister, and he used to go to Tory party conference, but hated every minute of it, and stayed, when it was at Blackpool, he stayed in a really smart hotel outside of town in a place called Thornton-le-Fylde. And every year he would have a group of hand-picked journalists to come and play homage at his table. And you had to understand, you had to be respectful of the great man. Well, I couldn't understand it. I'd been there for an hour and he'd completely ignored me. Hadn't said a word.
Nobody ignores Andrew. Nobody puts Andrew in the corner.
No, exactly. So
You're
I
our
did say at
baby.
one point, Sir Edward, I just want to say, I'm Andrew. I know exactly who you are. And I can't understand why you're here, who invited you, how you got on the guest list, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself because you're never coming again.
Wow.
And, well, that was rather charming. Anyway, half an hour later, it hardly mattered because the old curmudgeon was fast asleep at the table. And there were other examples. So, Peter...
Tell us about this one. This is, by the way, for viewers who don't know, one of the great political scoops of all time. I actually didn't know, written by Andrew Pierce. This is the story of Peter Mandelson in the Hartlepool by-election as a candidate, going into a fish and chip shop and seeing something green in a tub.
He was in a fish and chip shop and he had a Hartlepool scarf on incongruously because he was no football fan, Peter Mandelson, and he'd been Tony Blair's great communications man. Anyway, he was in the fish and chip shop and he points to this stuff behind the counter.
Mushy
says to the man,
peas, wasn't it?
No, he says, I'd like some of that delicious-looking guacamole mousse, please, to which the chip shop owner says, it's mushy peas, mate. And Mandelson begged me not to run the story and called Simon Jenkins, the editor of The Times, to say, it's a disgrace, it's not true, sack him. But there were many more calls like that from Peter Mandelson saying, sack him.
It's one of the great...
I never knew.
I think that story gets written quite a few times.
It's also, look, there are so many stories about why it happened. You know, it was clearly, they say, made up, a stitch-up. Was it Neil Kinnock? Was it Gordon Brown? Who was it who was responsible for the story? But
where did it come from?
Only you know, and you can't reveal your sources.
Oh,
but it caused ructions, and it's funny how such a silly little thing like that.
Well, it's silly because it becomes symbolic, doesn't it, of something else? Course, I just want to quickly squeeze in a different kind of rat.
No, we can't.
We can't?
I thought we'd agreed not to do this story.
Why?
Because I just find it really personally upsetting. I'm not comfortable with showing pictures of large
well, I'm
rats.
going to give a warning for Ed and anybody else. We're talking about rats.
I don't want to
there's
do
a
this.
picture of an extremely large deceased rat. It's 22 inches long, and it was found in a home.
Looking at that.
Look away. I mean, it's the size of a small dog.
That really is bad.
It's huge and absolutely terrifying.
And it's where the local council is no longer
It was nesting in a property in the UK.
Yeah, and it's where the local councils, because they're cutting back on money, they're not doing the fumigation.
Just asking for a friend. Just asking for a friend. Where was it?
I actually don't know the exact location.
Was it in Birmingham?
Where was it?
No.
North Yorkshire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that quite close to York?
Too close.
Oh, my God.
Well,
at least we finally got the rat the size of a cat, the mythical rat the size of a cat that we
well,
I
suspect they're size of dogs now in Birmingham because the way that
very soon we'll be saddling up them, won't we, and riding them around. That'll be the next thing. My goodness. Well, I mean, it's not fair to get rid of the rats, is it? Poor things. But I would not be comfortable if that was in my house, I've got to be honest.
Really gross. You'd have to get
move out.
Fumigated from top to toe.
Fumigated.
Yep.
So there we go. Thank you very much indeed. There's so many more stories in your piece. Don't worry, we'll come back to them, Andrew.
What the link was from the Andrew Pierce kind of stories of...
It was rats in politics.
How did you get to rats?
Because
politicians.
Politicians, Ed. Like rats.
You used to be one,
that
remember?
Was my link.
I was very tempted to put Ed in my list of infamous bastards.
Why? What did he do to you, Andrew?
We had
Come
one
on.
or two
We
run-ins.
never did.
We had one or two.
Is
Did you?
Is that a sinking ship? And am I going to jump? Said the rat.
The producer quickly running the music for us to go to the break to spare Ed and Andrew's blushes, maybe.